welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Hit us up by email to dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Scott, and welcome to another scintillating broadcast. There'll be thrills, there'll be chills. I'm thrilled.
Oh, good.
And you're Margaret.
I'm Margaret, right?
Yes. And so tonight we are going to be thrilled with Margaret. And if you think that that's titillating, there's a good English word, titillating. We might have to have a whole show about that. Wait till you hear about our topic.
Oh man.
Strap
in, people.
Strap in. We have a nice topic tonight, but a generous reading of it might offend some. So we'll give a PSA. Don't be offended by our topic. It's an interesting one, though. I think the quote that we're going to post up on the website is from Ludwig van Beethoven, which everyone is familiar with, his Moonlight Sonata and all the other things he did. Did he do that? Just making sure. Because I get these things wrong, but then Margaret's here to save us. No, that was Tchaikovsky. Was it? Might have been.
No.
Anyway, one of those things that was that stuff with the stuff that he did it with, but he has an interesting quote, and I'm just going to read it right off the top because we're going to start there. It says, "Don't only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. Art deserves that, for it and the knowledge can raise man to the divine." It and knowledge can raise man to the divine. And it's an interesting observation, but I think it's and my take on it was that, yes, if you're a genius like Beethoven, you can see yourself pursuing your art to the nth degree. You can see yourself dedicating your life to the talent that was given to you by the Creator, and realizing your dreams through that. Not just practicing it, but in essence becoming so expert, taking art beyond the current bounds of art. And I think that that's correct and true. But the sort of the insight, the envelope here, which people say, they say, well, that's great for Beethoven or some other genius, but what about me? I've got no talents. I've tried playing the string guitar in high school, and all I did was cut myself and annoy the neighbors. And so what can I do? And I think the insight is in our sort of sentence above this all, which is that although art is defined as having great talent, often defined as having great talent, and pursuing it to the fullest, all of us are incarnate here in life to pursue life itself and to delve into its secrets. So, our lives, our existence here is a practice of the art of living. And this limited thing which says delve into your one talent is great, but really it's delve into and refuse to be limited by any pursuit. Go at life, live life to the fullest, in essence, like a beer commercial, but live life to the fullest. And you're forcing yourself into the secrets is forcing yourself into the secrets of existence. Pursue that which is interesting to you to the nth degree, whatever it is, and you'll find that in and of itself will become your art, if you will. It's another way of saying follow your bliss, but it's I think a better way. It's much more approachable.
Following through, living your life to the fullest, which is the phrase that you hear all the time. And most people interpret that as, you're just having a good time all the time.
Yes.
But life is more than you just having a good time all the time. And most people would say, what are you talking about?
I'm willing to be convinced, but I'm not yet.
Mm-hmm.
No, yes, you're right, of course.
Living life to the fullest means it's the fullness of your being, not just what you think is the fullest of your being.
Mm.
Well, that means I have to enjoy all these things because this is what makes me happy. That's part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
But coming to the point of knowing yourself, understanding what it is and who it is that you are, that purpose is the reason why you live. So pursuing your life to the fullest is exploring the reason that you live, exploring it all, understanding the ups and the downs, as well as what it means to hold balance in your life, a balanced perspective.
And I think to go back to the earlier what you just said, in pursuing, in essence, living that life in the now, in the moment, pursuing every part of it, you will find the art, you will find the muse, you will find, that which provides your life meaning. I mean, I think everyone comes here and their struggle is, why am I here? Who am I? Right? Those two big questions. And I don't think that you can find those things in an intellectual way.
Correct.
And I don't think you can even find them, by pursuing only your happiness. You find them, I would say that you find them many times in great trial and in great adversity. It's very easy when everything's going well to just say, oh, this is great, everything's going well, I never want this to change. But yet, it's also very easy to become lazy in the sense of, well, why should I strive? Why should I go further? This is comfortable. And the mind loves that. It just says, okay,
predictability.
Hey, predictability, everything's going great, and it's in adversity or in trial that you are required to come up to something. You have to persevere. You have to live life in that moment because you don't have the lazy sort of choice to ignore the moment. Good times, everyone says, oh, the bad times seem to last so long and the good times seem to vanish right away. I think it's because when things are good, when we think things are good, we kind of put ourselves on autopilot. We don't live, we don't dive deep, we don't try to to even appreciate the moment. We let it kind of slide by very quickly, almost like, oh, well, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
You're checking boxes at that point.
Yes.
This is what I think a good moment means.
Right.
So, okay, I'm warm, I'm satiated, I'm not hungry.
Right.
There's this list, and that means that you're good or you think you're happy.
You don't do what Beethoven says here very succinctly. You don't force your way into the secrets of the current happy moment. You're more than willing to say, just let it slide. Don't rock the boat. Just, oh, this is good. Don't worry about it. But the reason that good moment seems to fleet right by and then something challenging comes up is that you aren't putting yourself in the mode of living in the now. Every moment takes the exact amount of time that the one before it took and the one after it will take. But our minds are very good at glossing over those things and sort of putting yourself into this, I don't know, stupor, reverie of oh, okay, no, 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 it becomes ignorable, and almost you take it for granted, and then it seems to fleet right by. You often say, people do that with their food. They if it's something they like, they just kind of glom it right down and hardly
taste your
taste
food
it.
already.
Taste your food. Taste your food is every portion of that. It's not only just appreciating that it tastes good, but you can dive into how is this, how was this created? How was this made? Let me follow that. Let me learn to create something like this. Let me understand what's behind it. What's the essence of this goodness? If you follow the sweetness down, it's as easily as rigorous as following down adversity. But people don't do it. They just glom by the sweetness and keep on pushing it in, barely tasting it until something sour or sharp enters their existence or their mouth. And
Their mouth
and
is
then
their
and then
existence.
yes. Well, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole other.
But
Well, actually, it's quite succinct.
succinct and germane, because as you chew on life, you're glomming it down without tasting it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet something sour or sharp makes you stop and pause and have to consider and have to delve into, how did this happen? Why did this happen? But also that analogy falls apart a little bit, because in essence, when you have to swallow the bitter drink, when you have to drain the dregs, you have to find a way to live in that moment too, and also persevere through those moments as well. And one of the secrets that we don't dive into in life is to understand that which we consider good and sweet, as that which we consider repugnant and sour, both deserve our undivided attention. Both deserve to dive into the depths. And if you go beyond those, if you really dive into the depths, you'll find that they have a similar, or really the same root. They're the root of now, they're the root of existence, they're the root of reality, which oftentimes when things are good, we just ignore reality. We think that we have it all under control. What a conceit. I got everything under control. You know right then that you do not, or you should know. And when the sour and when the repugnant, when the adversity of life comes in, you feel at loss, you feel at sea, you feel unable to control anything. But in fact, you never really can. You're lying to yourself when you say you can. And the true truth, the diving into the reality of life, is that the moment of now is not there for you to judge. It's there for you to live in, as is the next. And the one that you're living in now is equally, in fact, is the most precious moment. It's as precious as the one that preceded it, but that one is no longer with you. It's perhaps as precious as the one that's coming, but that one is not guaranteed. The one you have now is all you have, ever. And whether it's filled with great adversity or great, the opposite of adversity, great pleasure, great wonder.
Great joy.
Great joy, thank you. It's no less precious. The secret, the depths that you dive into when you force your way into the secrets of the art of life, is that every moment is not there to be judged by you. That's the conceit.
Forcing your way into the secrets of life, of art. But what that's referencing is you're actually fighting with yourself to be able to go into that depth, because especially if it's going to be uncomfortable, you don't want that. You would rather, well, no, I don't want to delve into that. That's too scary, or too much of an unknown.
Before you go beyond that you that you're talking about, just elaborate. When you say you don't want that, who's the you there?
That's your your ego, your mental faculties
Exactly.
that basically want to say it's in control. I drive the car.
And I judge what I want and what I don't want.
Right. And that's the interesting thing about an ego. It constantly wants to judge.
I would say even that it just constantly wants.
Well, when the acknowledgement comes in that the most powerful thing you can do in any moment is to choose. So it wants, your ego wants full control of choice, which means that you are in bondage.
I think that's interesting because you always have full control of choice, but I think the ego wants full control of circumstance. Ego wants to judge. I don't like this, and I want a different reality. Rather than the choice, which is in any, if you dive to the depth, you can always choose in any situation. You can choose, as we've said before, you can choose joy.
It wants to have a reality that allows it to choose what the outward form is, to control that narrative, to control the story that you're telling yourself, as opposed to what is actually unfolding right in that moment. And that is forcing yourself past that habit form.
Yes.
Living is forcing true experience, acknowledges that that part of you wants to do that. But there's more here than what it's telling me. I want to grasp the whole experience, not just this narrow down form of information, this set of information that it wants to give me, because it agrees with a narrative that it's been telling you all the way through. And usually all that, the motivation on that narrative is because it wants control.
Right.
So when you realize that that happens, when you acknowledge that within yourself, you have that part of you. It's not that other person over there that's trying to force me to believe this or that or the other thing or say that. No. That part is you. And you've received it. You have to detach from it.
The other interesting thing, if we just back up a second, what Beethoven here is talking about is art. And I think that puts people off. But when we talked about the art of life, but in fact, if you use it as an analogy, it's perfect. In learning in art, even if you're very talented, in the beginning you'll be given set pieces that others have written, that others have put together in order to develop your own talent. But once you get to that where you can do those perfectly, true art is pushing yourself beyond, finding your own muse, finding your own voice. And you can't sit there and just cover other people's songs or paint by numbers, even if you do it beautifully, because that is not art anymore. That's just copying. Art is
craft. That's
right.
Craft. That's you are perfecting your craft.
Right.
But taking a step into your art requires more of your soul.
I would say absolutely more of your soul, and it requires that courage. It's a leap of faith to have to go beyond that which is known and into the unknown. And similarly, when we talk about that with life, in adversity, once you have to step beyond the bounds of that little ego circle that you were talking about before, you then have to, perforce, find your own voice, find your own way, make an art out of your life and how you're going to do it. Because no matter what, no matter how much, even if somebody wants to, no one can live your life for you. No one can take the burden of your own adversity or your own joy. That's both a seemingly a truism, but it's also an extremely powerful affirmation of our individual spark. You have your life. It is inalienable from you. No one can live it for you. It is yours entirely, and to the extent that you delve into that secret, all other things will come to you. You know, the true ownership of your art is analogous to the true ownership of your life, of who you actually are, not who your ego would like to tell you you are.
I would propose that it is the path that your feet are walking. To understand that pathway is a series of choices. And making that choice is key. Because if it's strictly about you enjoying what you have, then you haven't touched into that which is eternal. Art in its true form is eternal. It's an eternal expression. It goes beyond bounds of culture. Anything that you define yourself in terms of an ego, making a step into something that resonates throughout time is truly a gift, a marvelous moment that can be shared. And that is something that most people haven't really thought about. They thought, okay, I'm going to do this because this is my creative outlet. This is what I do. And it's very color in the box, color in the lines kind of thing. This is how I've been taught. These are the techniques we use, and we could go here and there and the other. But to reach into a place where you know that this piece that you are putting your hand to will be resonating throughout time to other hearts and other souls. Oh my. That's the touch of the eternal.
Yeah, and I think where people fall down on that a little bit is they say, well, I don't have that talent. And that's what we're trying to say here, again, is that your life delves deep. Your life, forcing your way into the secrets of living, echoes into the eternal, because at that basic level, you find the root of the common dream. You find the root of your eternity, your eternal personage, that this incarnation is just a piece of. And
your soul expression.
Right. And interestingly enough, it may never be known by any other but you and the eternal. And it doesn't matter. It will still echo down into without time, into all time, into the eternal. Because of that, in essence, a life lived well, or a life lived at the fullest, at the deepest levels, or in pursuit of those deep levels, becomes its own artwork. Regardless, when somebody says, "Oh, what a great XYZ you are, painter, driver, whatever it is," yes, those can reach the level of art, but they only do so as an echo of the entire. The life lived entire is its own testament to delving into the depths of existence here and now, and finding that it all connects back to the eternal. Once you get there, one might say that you have reached the enlightenment. You have reached the root. If you, it's just another expression. Buddha says this. The point is that you now have transcended the limits of a incarnate existence, and realize the truth of the eternal part of all of us, which can be found many ways. It can be found in an undefined number of ways. Some of them are art, what we call art here. But fame is fleeting. Art is destructible. It is the touching the eternal, which is incorruptible, and the highest form of that truth. So getting there through art is a way, not a limiting way. It's just one of the infinite number of ways.
A myriad of ways.
A myriad of ways.
And I think that it comes back down to being able to follow something that you are passionate about.
Yeah.
Because being passionate about something doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be good all the time, or bad all the time. It's just you are in your passion and you are burning for this point in creation. You are creating something, and that's all you know. And that's when you lose yourself in that action. Losing consciousness of, this is my ego doing this. If you're creating and all you're thinking of is, aren't I wonderful? This is what I've got going. You need to push deeper, past the boundary of yourself.
It's interesting because I think everyone's had a moment, a flash, where you realize in the true moment of creation, you lose track of time. And in fact, what I would say is in the true moment of creation, you have entered the timelessness. You've entered the moment. And almost, you can find many, many accounts of those who say, I was doing this and it felt like time stood still. It felt like no time at all elapsed. It felt like I was riding this eternal wave. All these things, whether it's in sport or in art or in any endeavor, once you follow your passion to the root, once you are at the burning point, you lose. The ego is gone. The ego is left in the dust. You lose connection to the temporal existence. Yes, time still goes on. You're not in a black hole somewhere, unable to age. But in connecting to the eternal at that level, you transcend your own sense of time. You transcend your own connection to the incarnate, which has this sort of clockwork motion of moving forward and this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, which the ego loves again. And you leave it all behind, and then a reflection of that may be what is created or what is experienced. When you're in that moment, you can have a timeless experience, which no matter how far away it is from you from the present moment, it's so easy to bring it back and recall it because it is burned on your eternity bank. It is burned into that which you did, which was at that level.
Yes. Outside of those constraints of what you think you need. And the interesting part is you think you need to have this ego in order to create. Isn't that an interesting thought? But what actually creates in that moment? Is it really your ego?
It never is. But yet the ego would like to tell you that it is.
And in fact, when you are in a moment of creation, when you're doing something, if you can stop and reflect for a moment, it's like, who's actually doing this? And you'd be very surprised to find the internal flows that are happening in that moment of creation. It's not your ego has very little contribution to it, truthfully.
I think that's a wonderful place to take a little break. But I want to leave us with this last thought, and then we'll go to the break, which is this. We're all born with it. And if you've ever watched a 2-year-old involved in a project in which they are totally lost, they are in that moment of creation. And that's where you have to be in. So let's take a little break, go back to the studio. We'll listen to some other people's creations, and we'll come back and talk more about delving deep.
Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on ArtistFirst Radio. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And we are talking this evening about, well, in essence, practicing your art, and really saying that your art is your life, your incarnate existence. And the thought we left everyone with, and I know you were just hanging on the edges of your seat while we played those commercials. The thought we left you with is that we are all born with this ability to prosecute our life as our art. And you will see it in the furrowed brow of a concentrating toddler. Because in that moment, all time has ceased. And everyone looking at that knows that this young person is in a timeless mode. And we can all get there again. It becomes sort of a, we talk about a meditation, but meditations are not just, sitting there and chanting. You can be in a meditation in any aspect of your life, in the sense that you are totally concentrated. Your ego is completely pushed to the side. It's not even part of the equation. You are there living in the burning moment, even if you're just finger painting, because those 2-year-olds with a sponge brush in one hand and dotting it on the paper, looking at what they're doing, they are creating a masterpiece in a timeless moment. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It is the pursuit of that instant, of that lived at the moment, burning moment, that point in time, that gives evidence of the eternal. They are doing more than just putting paint on paper. They're living that moment of putting paint on paper. And you can do that with any moment. And you're at the highest level of meditation because your ego is completely, totally, utterly gone. The inner voice is shut off. You are just doing the thing with the stuff.
It's true. It's just a wonderful experience.
Yes, and we've all had that. You get it. You and you can even think of moments when wow, I was just doing the thing with the stuff, and it was so great. And you don't even know why it was so great unless you think about it a little bit more. But it almost seems to push it away. When you're in the moment of doing the thing with the stuff, even thinking about doing the thing with the stuff is completely pushed away. You're not living in an ego moment. You're living in the actual reality of the moment. Whether it's sitting there on the sand and digging a hole with a shovel, if you just put yourself into that moment, you're digging a hole with a shovel, but you're living life at its fullest extent right in that moment.
Right. It's just that complete encompassing of the moment. It's like that your arms are open wide, and you just bring that moment right into your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And they are there. The little ones especially, that's just the clearest example. Doing the simplest of things.
Totally present.
Mm-hmm. So completely there. And pushing yourself past that boundary.
Mm.
What was the phrase in Beethoven's?
Force your way into the secrets?
Mm-hmm. It's understanding that pushing yourself past that boundary of ego is forcing your way through to what the secret that life holds in that moment, because there are secrets in every moment.
Mm.
Whether or not you receive that and embrace that is the question. You have to choose to embrace that, because if you choose to think about that, you're not really embracing that.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting. It's a very subtle and interesting point. You have to choose without the ego being involved, and people think, well, how can I do that? Well, I can't. You have to let the I go, and the way you get to where the I is gone, but yet you have the choice, because Tolle would say, there's the consciousness below and beyond and encompassing the I. The I is a very small piece that thinks it's very large. When you get into the consciousness, there is still the will, there's still the choice, but there isn't the I. And then in the in the burning point of existence, you are just being. You can be doing and being, but it's no longer amming. It's not eyeing. Or rather, it is amming. It's not, but it's not eyeing. It's not being an ego.
It is amming.
It is amming.
Mm-hmm.
It is in being and choosing to be there without this ego noise in the background, this constant. Here's where you fall out of it. You probably have had this experience. You're in the moment. You're doing something. You're creating it, and you're just doing it. You're just being there. And then you sit back and say, I don't like this. This is crap. You start tearing it up. Well, you've fallen out of that. The moment of judgment is a return to ego. In the moment of creation, you aren't judging it. You're just doing it.
Mostly because you've already had a foundation set down of techniques. Because when you're learning the techniques on how to do whatever your particular art form happens to be in that moment, people teach you that this is the criteria that you have to meet in order to do it properly. So that trains your consciousness to give over to the mind so that it can see whether or not it's meeting that.
Right.
But once you have mastered that technique, then you have to switch your mode and not go back to the way it's supposed to be. A number of artists actually had prided themselves on breaking those accepted rules. Pablo Picasso is one that comes to mind immediately. Not to go according to this is the appropriate form on how you're supposed to present whatever it may be, a sculpture or a painting. And as I said, a number of artists consciously said, no, you can still have a creative form by breaking that rule.
I think you have the essence of it is that you have the ability to embrace that moment innately, incarnately at birth. We in order to express in a particular medium, you need training. So let's say you are a latent genius at music or art or something. You still need the training. Somebody has to expose you to those things. But genius knows that the true embracing of that moment and knowing that technique and talent are nothing, technique and the training are nothing more than tools, artifacts, things that are useful, but yet not the embracing. They're there, and maybe they're there to be broken, or they're there to even be used in their fullness. But getting beyond them is a return to that which is fundamental, which is that 2-year-old with a sponge brush dabbing it onto a piece of paper is in the moment of every human life at its highest form, because he or she is in the moment of the burning and not saying, oh, that brush stroke is wrong, or this part of the paper should be blue, or no. What they're putting down there may not actually appear to another person as being great art, but the spirit of its formation is written on eternity, because they did it in the burning moment of being and in now.
I think of because that intensity that you see when they're intent on creating a picture, I think of the cave paintings of Lascaux, where they're dabbing ochre, creating the animals on the walls, and realizing that, because you know that to get into there, the only light they had was the one they brought, which was usually burning flame of some kind or a torch. So their creation took all that into account, and they wanted to reproduce the spirit of the animal that they lived with on these plains. Capture that spirit on that wall, in that experience of that moment with the lights flickering. How do I recreate this? That intensity. And I love the fact that they sign their paintings by putting their handprint there.
Yes.
You know, and most people, that's the other interesting thing too. People think, oh, the handprint that they put up there, they must have just stuck their hand in the paint and then touched the wall. It's like, no. They put their own hand there and blew the paint on their hand so that the outline was there. That's an expression of understanding how they interact with their world. Marvelous. See, because that's non-ego.
Exactly. And here's the interesting thing about it. Any human being living 40, 50, 60,000 years in the future, as we are, looks at that and there's an instant connection of art. You can still feel the spirit that was done in being 40, 50,000 years ago, because those were incarnate spirits, eternal spirits that touched into a moment which continues to resonate. We say 50,000 years later, I would say eternally, because that moment of being and those few strokes of ochre on a cave wall speak to our hearts 50,000 years later, because they were of the same kind. The same spirit was incarnate within these very different, talk about cross-cultural, cross-language, cross 50,000 years is halfway to the dawn of humans on this planet. Yet you look at that and you feel the animus, the animation, the life force that was put into it right now, without, and it's a wordless moment. Just looking upon that strikes something deep within the eternal part of us and evokes that emotion. And then you can talk about it all you want, and you can gabble on all you want, and you can take yourself out of it. But that was done with the intensity of the 2-year-old dabbing paint onto a paper with a sponge, because it's the same moment. The form is an expression of the eternal, and therefore resonates. No one taught these human beings 50,000 years ago. They were breaking into the secrets of life.
Right. They went past what their everyday existence was because they wanted to create and honor what it was that was around them and share that with other human beings. So it's understanding that is the expression of art. And it is the soul that created that is speaking throughout the centuries. And we receive that. We understand that. It's not your ego that's understanding that. We're not sitting there and analyzing, oh, this technique or that technique. It's like, no. It is the experience. Human experience to human experience. Amazing.
An interesting thing about that is when you see those paintings, even reproduced in a picture sometime, not even in the cave, you can still feel it. And when you feel that, you are experiencing an energy flow that is impossibly remote in one sense, and yet viscerally there in another. So it becomes a dissonance. The ego becomes frightened a little bit by this, because it's like, wow, how can I feel something, it will say, from something that was so long ago? And it tries to quantify, well, it must be this, and it has this huge argument of talking to itself about why. But it doesn't matter, because at the heart level, you've already connected, and yet the words that will come up will try to describe the connection, but they wouldn't even come if there wasn't the connection. If it was merely a few strokes of ochre on a wall in a cave somewhere, you go, wash it off. Yet we know, even to this day, that washing that off would be a terrible desecration of spirit. Why? It's just a couple of ochre strokes on a wall done by somebody who was so remote from us we can't even possibly. There's no connection here. There's no relatives to us. No, we know that in any way destroying this is a
travesty.
It is a betrayal. It's worse than that. It's literally an injury on the eternal spirit of what was there. We would feel that we ourselves were wounded, were that to be destroyed. You would feel some sort of a loss, and because the connection is at the heart level, you would have a part of your heart connection broken by this being destroyed or being in any way marred. Now, it might happen, but it doesn't matter that it might happen. What matters is that it would wound you. But why? Because it was a human, eternal expression of a moment of now that we can feel to this day. So when you're in that moment of now, you're writing things on the eternal. Were you to take a child's painting of sponge on paper and bring it 50,000 years into the future and show it to another human being, they might look at it and say, I know what this child was doing. This child was expressing itself in a moment of great nowness, amness, being. And yet that would be because that eternal spirit still lived on 50,000 years again in the future. It would still see the 100,000-year-old now painting in Lascaux and feel the humanity. That's the connection. It doesn't matter how many years and how remote these human beings are from us.
Right. And it's at that point that you realize that you have pushed past you forced your way past into the secrets that life holds.
Yeah. Another interesting way we do it is through burial rituals and things. But I think when you get to culture, it can be lost. We can say, well, what were they trying to do here? What does this symbol mean? And symbols are tied much more closely to culture. They're important. But the affirmation of being placed in being upon something physical, because that's the only way that it would preserve. Something physical preserves it here in the incarnation. But yet there's something way beyond the physical here. Way beyond it. The physical is merely a vehicle which allows us to experience that which was created. But what we get from that isn't the same thing as just a stroke of ochre on a wall. There's more there, way beyond what is physically there. There is that eternal resonance there. And it only resonates with us because we share that same eternity. If we weren't connected through the eternity, we would have no resonance with it.
It is hitting a common point in our humanity.
Yes.
In the soul of every man.
In the soul of every man. Wow, do you see what she did there? That was awesome, man. I wish. Why didn't I think of that? But in truth, forcing your way into the secrets is forcing your way into the eternal. Really.
Yes.
And
the
you do.
mystery. It's
The
the
mystery.
mystery.
Man, you're on fire tonight. That's 2 for you. Man, I gotta keep keeping score.
You see, that's ego.
I know, but it's so cool. Yeah. So yes, you force your way into the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the tarot, the mystery is the shadow behind the crone, if you will, the void, the mystery.
Every moment of your life is a moment to unveil a mystery.
Yeah.
Coming into the secret that moment has for you. If you live your life realizing that every moment has a secret that can be unveiled to you, it changes your perspective completely.
And I would say that we knew that viscerally when we were born. That our ego lays itself on top of that and interferes with that.
Well, the requirement here is to interact with other humans.
Right.
And in order to do that, many times there is this sort of dance of the ego, one to the other, which is rather amusing, actually, when you see it. People think that the dance of the ego is what a relationship is.
Well,
and it is not.
And it's not. But anyway, we're going. So I do like this because, again, our lives are our art. Are our art. That's hard to say.
Our lives
Are
our art.
See how she just makes it effortless, so easy. But I have trouble.
Breathe.
Anyway, so our lives are our art. Our art. I think I'm having a stroke. And
No,
and,
you're not.
I
You better not.
I might be. You never know. Anyway, so our lives are art, but it is in realizing those egoless moments, those connections to the eternity that we are. And I think Beethoven says, "Force your way into the secrets." Yes, it can feel that way, but I think once you have realized it, you say, well, it isn't forcing into the secrets as much as forcing away that which is including the secrets. Yes, I mean, what we cover them up with is what you're forcing away.
That's pretty much what happens when you realize you've got to function in this world. So there's all these requirements and rules that you have to come up to. But then to take the step into pure creation doesn't necessitate those rules any longer once you understand how it functions, how the techniques work in order to bring about something.
Right.
And it varies according to what it is you put your hand to.
They have value, but they're not an end in and of themselves.
Right. And to sit there and just continually judge puts your ego in the front place. And it doesn't need to be there.
You're right. So force your way into those secrets and live your life as your art. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.